The Concacaf Champions League, then and now known as the Concacaf Champions Cup, has an insane history. From Chivas making history to be the first ever winners in 1962, New York Hungaria becoming the first ever American participants in 1963, an absolute debacle of clubs withdrawing or being kicked out for various reasons during the 1960s, leading to the second ever Mexican champions Toluca having to be awarded the title after no final could be played. In 1968, there were 3 joint champions in 1978, and the first Haitian champions, Racing Club Haitien, was awarded the title in 1963 for similar reasons to Toluca in 68, while the second, Violet AC, in 1984, showed the strength and potential of Haitian football before the nation succumbed to gang and military violence in the decades to follow. Don't forget Cuban relative minnows Pinar del Rio losing to Mexican side Pumas in 1989 in the finals, and then returning to the final in 1990 only to lose to an even bigger CCL behemoth in Club America. The unpredictability and depth of this competition and its talent also saw champions from places that would be almost unfathomable to produce a champion today, such as Suriname, Guatemala, and Trinidad and Tobago. When 1998 rolled around, no team from the United States had ever won the competition. New York Hungaria in 1963 was the first to ever participate in the CCL. The first US team to reach the finals were the LA Galaxy in 1997, who probably deserve their own video just for that feat. They were put to the sword by Cruz Azul 5-3 in that final in DC. The CONCACAF Champions Cup was in the midst of a host country era, unlike the two-legged home and away finals of the present. The 1998 tournament was in DC again. The first ever MLS Cup champions, DC United, qualified by virtue of winning the second ever MLS Cup in 1997. And with the team on a run that would see them qualify for their third MLS Cup on the hunt for a three-peat, it was the perfect set of conditions for DC United to add continental glory to their very new, but already filling, trophy cabinet, and make massive history in doing so. DC had lost in the 1997 semifinals to eventual runners-up LA Galaxy at home. Their quarterfinal win that year was against Trinidadi side United Petrotin in a narrow 1-0 victory. Their first round in 1998 saw them face Trinidadi opposition again in then Trinidad and Tobago champions Joe Public. Super cool name, by the way. This time, however, it would be nowhere near as sweaty, as DC dispatched Joe Public 8-0 in an impressive outing. Prolific Bolivian striker Jaime Moreno, who was top scorer of the 1997 MLS season, didn't score in this game or even in this tournament. But it would become obvious how talented this squad was as the tournament progressed that it didn't even make a difference. Recently signed Roy Lassiter, returning from a loan at Genoa, scored 4 goals in this game, a part of a year where he scored 36 goals in 55 appearances. It was a multi-scoring party as Ben Olsen and Anthony A.J. Wood would also net 2 each. Leon was next, and the game would be a bit more of a slog. Leon were the runners-up of the previous season's Liga MX Invierno season, Invierno being the first of 2 halves of a Liga MX season typically. These days it's Clausura and Apertura, but this is what they used to be called. And both these half seasons produce its own champion. The Invierno was the summer-fall championship. Leon made it all the way to the finals, largely off the incredible scoring prowess of Eduardo Espinosa, who bagged 4 crucial goals in that playoff campaign. Unfortunately, they were slain by an extra-time penalty from Cruz Azul legend Carlos Manuel Hermosillo, handing Leon the aggregate loss. Leon was unable to repeat the magic in the next 2 half seasons, failing to make the playoffs in the following Verano season and struggling in the 1998 Invierno, where they met DC United. They barely got through El Salvadorian side Luis Angel Firpo on penalties in the quarterfinals. Eduardo Espinosa would be loaned to Necaxa, who would go on to defeat Giants Chivas in the finals of that same Liga MX Invierno campaign. The match provided DC United with an opportunity to strike at a wounded lion. Lassiter scored early, and then he scored in the 61st to book DC's place in the final. Waiting for them was a Toluca squad that eliminated 2 of Costa Rica's big 3. First, Alajuelense in the quarters, then scraping through Deportivo Saprissa in their semifinal on penalties. And in the ongoing Liga MX season, Toluca were defending champions and seemed to be a lock for at least the finals place once again this season. It was a monumental task, but DC had the home crowd, and it was a task that US and DC United legend Eddie Pope was up to, scoring in the 41st. Pope led a defensive core alongside goalkeeper Scott Garlick that kept a clean sheet for the entire tournament. Bruce Arena's squad overcame Enrique Meza's side, another notch in the legendary American manager's belt. This was North American soccer history, the first continental title for an American side. A feat that will only be repeated twice after, spread across 25 years. Both teams' league title defenses would continue after this. Toluca was upset by Atlas in the quarterfinals, and DC United returned to the MLS Cup final only for their nearly flawless season to be spoiled by an expansion team, Chicago Fire. Funny enough, like these two teams share this weird eternal connection, they both went on to avenge their defeats in their next respective campaigns. Toluca would get revenge on Atlas by defeating them in dramatic fashion in the 1999 Verano final. DC United would defeat the LA Galaxy in the 1999 MLS Cup final to win back their title. As for the continent, Toluca would have to wait until 2003 to finally earn the Champions Cup title back, that being the first one they actually had to beat someone on the field for. DC United would never return to the Concacaf Champions Cup final as of the day of this recording. They would later in 1998, though, add one more continental title to their cabinet by defeating Libertadores champions Vasco da Gama in the Copa Interamericana, the last ever version of an annual match between the winners of the Concacaf Champions Cup and the South American Copa Libertadores, making 1998 DC United's most historic season and a shining example of US soccer potential that we may never see again.